Assalamu alaikum everybody, and welcome to the sixth session focusing on Dua Iftitah. In this session we are looking at the third part of the first session, and this section looks at Allah's Tawheed, Allah's oneness, His total control over creation, and praising Allah as well. So that's kind of what this section focuses on.
Yeah. And we're going to touch on the first question, which is the concept of Allah having no equal comes up a few times. We've given you the answer already. What is the concept called? And it's the concept of Tawheed. And we're asking you to find your lines in this section and underline them. So feel free to have to pause and go through it yourself. We are going to be talking about the lines. We're not going to give you the line numbers. So your added challenge is to go in and spot them even afterwards if you want. But the reason we want to focus on this, it sounds like a very simplistic question for your age group, but we wanted to spend some time on it because usually we don't spend a lot of time on Tawheed. The normal definition is the oneness of Allah, and we can tend to stop there. But when we're looking at the lines of Tawheed in the dua, we can see that it develops the concept a lot further just within the dua itself. So for example,
yeah, it just makes it really clear for us and all the different facets of Tawheed, because our mind is so little in understanding, but when it comes in all these different angles, and I think it paints a better picture of us, what does this Tawheed mean and how does it show?
Yeah. So one of the first lines that we come across is, all praises to Allah, who has not taken a wife nor a son, who has no partner in his kingdom, and who has no friend to protect him from humiliation. Okay. And then another one is, all praises for Allah, who has no opposition in his kingdom, nor any challenge to his command. Now I love this one, because if we recognize that this is who Allah is, that he is absolutely free from any need of support from people around him or anything around him, that gives us a sense of hope that not only, last session we were talking about how he was always there, but there is no red tape when it comes to him. When we, like to get anything done, we have to ask the right people, we have to go through the right channels, and they usually have to ask somebody else. We know the levels of bureaucracy that are within pretty much every single system that we belong to. But with Allah, he is above all of that. There is no bureaucracy and there is no red tape. He can give, and he can give immediately.
It's going back to that idea of that he is the primary cause. He is the one that sets everything in motion.
Yeah.
To really believe that, yeah.
And there's one story that comes to mind here, Fatmanti, which when I think of this and the fact that we should have hope in the primary cause as well as in the system, I remember there's one scholar was on a podcast was talking about this example of a man who had converted. And the man came to him soon after the conversion. He had just had a child, and it turned out that the child had celiac disease, so he was allergic to gluten. And the man was telling the scholar that, you know what, I think I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Mashhad. And I've heard that, they give the food out at the Haram, and that food is supposed to have healing, and I'll give him some naan over there. And naan was something he was allergic to. And the scholar himself was like, are you sure? But, be careful, and you just know that, yes, Allah is the cure, but it might not happen that way. So the scholar himself was hesitant, because also he didn't want the convert to maybe go there, be disappointed, and turn away from faith. But the man was like, well, are you doubting, Allah? He goes, no, I'm not doubting Allah. And the man actually went and did that. When he came back, he just called the scholar and said, I want to come by and drop something off for you. And the scholar was clearly wanting to know what happened. So he goes, and is there anything you want to tell me? And he said, well, do you want to know what happened? He goes, yes. And he was able to eat that naan, and he was cured from his disease. And the doctors could not believe, like they asked him, like, what have you done? Which doctor have you gone to? And he's like, yeah, my doctor is a dead person, a grave in Iran. The fascinating thing about this story is it happened again with his next son. His other son also had the same thing. He also went to Mashhad, and he also got cured. And I just think when we have that belief in Allah's perfect ability to do whatever he wants, and in his, in this concept of there is no challenge to his command,
Yeah.
The world is at our fingertips. We really have all these options in front of us.
Completely. And I think, yeah, the next section, the next couple of ayats as well, I think just cement what you were saying.
Yes. Do you want to read through them really quickly?
So I think it's from 86, or we're not telling them, are we? Which
So there's all praises for Allah who has no partner in creation, nor anyone like him in his greatness. And then all praises for Allah who has no equal who argues with him, nor anyone similar to him, nor any helper to support him. So yeah, absolutely, all the same concept. So we're going to then jump to the last question on this, because there's a lot to say about it, which is there are many passages in this whole section which begin with the praise of Allah. Again, pause and highlight them and then come back. Why do we think this is so? Why is there so much emphasis on praising Allah?
So I think we can look at praise really in depth here. So we need to first of all distinguish between praising Allah and thanking Allah. And the easy one is when we thank Allah, because we thank Allah when He gives us something personally and we are grateful and we thank Him. But when we praise Allah, it's more like we are remembering Him, we are mentioning Him and His good qualities and the blessings that He has given to all of us communally. So it's not so personal, it's something that we are getting as a whole, as creation in total. Okay, and it's interesting that everybody, every creation, every inhabitant, every creation is praising Allah. Okay, but human beings are the only ones that praise Allah out of their free choice and their free will. So if we look at angels, for example, their whole purpose of creation, for some of them, was praising Allah. So, you know, their aim in their lifespan is to praise Allah, whereas we have to find it within us and to appreciate and then to come up with praise for Allah.
Yeah, and there's a really beautiful ayah in the Quran in Surah number 17, ayah 42. It says, the seven heavens glorify Him, and the earth too, and whatever is in them. There is not a thing, but it celebrates His praise. But you do not understand their glorification. Indeed, He is all forbearing, all forgiving. So it's a bit sad that we're the only ones who often, you know, choose not to be in a constant state of glorification due to this free will or our lack of recognition of the, you know, how Allah is deserving of our praise. I just wanted to also go back and say, like, the difference between hamd or praise and shukr is, if to give an analogy, is like an artist who creates a beautiful painting. We are able to praise that painting for the sake of that painting in itself. But when that painting is maybe gifted to us or created for us, then we would thank that person for the painting. So actually, we have no excuse not to be praising at any time, because even if it's not a blessing we are receiving, it is still something that is out there in the world. And so we need to be in that state of praise at all times. And we need to recognize this within ourselves.
Just like everything else is. It's a bit like we're the only ones who are not in perpetual praise, you know?
Yeah. So there's actually one practical way we can implement this. And that is, when we start every task, just try and get into the habit of saying Bismillah, first of all, asking in His name for His help to complete the task, but also praising Him at the beginning. Otherwise, you know, the task may not be completed, because like we said, you know, continuously throughout these sessions, everything we are doing, we are in need of Him anyway. So if we praise Him and ask Him in you know, when we're beginning something, then inshallah He will give us the help that we need to complete that task anyway.
Yeah. And then just Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the two names of Rahman and Rahim, His mercy, we are invoking that within our task, then you know, the chances of success is so much more.
Yeah. And going back to our first session, when we were looking at Ya Ali Ya Azim, we actually defined praise, didn't we, as practically manifesting the attributes that we see. So if we analyze, if we go through the dua and we look through all the different statements that begin with all praises to Allah, another practical manifestation is we need to ask ourselves, well, actually, can I manifest this in myself? And not all can be, can they?
Some more explicit to Allah,
Yeah, some are very particular to Allah. For example, all praises for Allah who creates but is not created. So obviously we can't manifest that one, but there are loads that we can. So for example, there's one that says, all praises for Allah who answers me when I call him. And one question we can ask ourselves is that, well, you know, when people ask me for help, or when they call me, or even when my mom calls me, do I ignore her or do I answer her? You know, when my brother is asking me something, do I ignore him or do I answer him? And just by keeping this in mind, that I need to practically manifest this phrase, we can try and become better in that essence.
Even something like, you know, oh praise for, whose door is always open. Are we always approachable? You know, can people always come to us without feeling, you know, any sense of obligation and ask us for help?
Yeah, absolutely. And a very quick summary of, you know, the other things that we say all praises to Allah for, things like his commands operate over his creation, his generosity, he gives us what we need, he answers our calls, we feel safe with him, and he's always there for us. So these are definitely praiseworthy things. And it's important to remember that we don't praise him, remember, like, we don't praise him because he needs our praise.
Yeah.
As with everything, it's because we need to remember that.
And it will just, yeah, it will just facilitate, and you know, that intimacy and that closeness with Allah. You know, when somebody does something for you, you feel so grateful, and you want, you know, you want to respond, you want to reciprocate, you want to love them back. And that's how it is, you know, when we acknowledge the things that Allah does for us continuously, then that will bring us closer to him.
Yeah, there's definitely a common strand that's running through all these sessions, isn't there?
Completely.
Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you found that useful, and inshallah we'll see you next time. Take care. Khada Hafiz.